Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. It is Dr. Jan with Relationship Matters TV. I hope everyone is having a beautiful, blessed morning, afternoon, or evening. Well, we are here in Chicago, well, right outside of Chicago, and we have all of this smoke from Canada from the forest fires. So they have this alert going where they're telling you, to stay inside if you can. If you have respiratory illnesses, to wear a mask or stay inside. And so today, when I look out, it's still light out, but it has been like overcast all day, a funny kind of looking color. And driving in my car, and I had the window down, I started, and my eyes started burning, so I had to let the window up. But tomorrow, we're hoping that we will not have that presence here in the Midwest. Well, today's show is all about music, and it's one of my favorite genres of music. But before that, the show is Relationship Matters, so I wanted to talk a little bit about music. When you think about music, it's more than a sound, it's a mirror of our souls. It carries the emotions we struggle to name. It gives voice to our silence, and it helps us to make sense of moments too deep for explanation. We don't just listen to music, we feel it. You think about it, a single song that you hear can bring you back, can take you back years. It can revive a memory, make you think about a person or a place. Sometimes it's a person or place that you have totally forgotten about. So when you think about it, music becomes the soundtrack of our lives. It shapes us, it shapes our stories, it marks milestones, and it can remind us of who we were, who we are, and who we might be becoming. And when you talk about music and relationships, music can connect us to ourselves and connect us to each other. And when you think about the instruments, sometimes, they need tuning, and so do relationships. Think about your relationship like it's a playlist. It has its highs, it has its lows, it has its love songs, it can have breakup songs. I want you to think about your personal and your professional relationships. What kind of music do you think about? Think about it. All right. That is your thought for today, for the rest of the week. All righty. Now, I want to bring to you a special guest, and her name is Beth Pellino. I hope I pronounced the last name right. Dudzic or Dudzic. She'll tell me. Let me tell you about Beth. Beth was born in the Bronx in New York City. She grew up in Westchester County for most of her life. She received a BA in business administration. Then she moved to Honolulu, Hawaii, where I wanted to retire to. Maybe I can. Maybe we can, I should say that. Where her three daughters were born. She came back to Westchester to raise her daughters, and she worked at IBM upon her return. Now, we're going to talk about her books, okay? And when you listen to her story. These are stories that she developed in her head, and they were just waiting to come out, waiting to be written. And once she talks about the stories and in that her series, everything becomes crystal clear. Now she lives in Alabama, Pike Road, with her miniature dachshund, Truffle. Beth's favorite pastime is football. So, girl, look, my husband, football, 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 football. Cooking and baking. She is now writing lyrics for songs, and in every one of her books, her songs, her original songs are there. They're written in there and playlists that accompany each book. So now Beth is getting her singing voice together just in case. When she put that just in case, I thought, is it a just in case? Because I might ask her to sing. We don't know. But anyway, let's bring about Beth. And Beth, the music that she's going to talk about. I
Yes.
love rock and roll. Put a little, put another something in the jukebox.
First, I want to say everything you just said in your monologue about music is what I would have said, that music transports us to a place and a person, and sometimes it even invokes for me smells of where, first time I heard that song, or did I go to this concert. And it really is the one thing you said so clearly. It is the soundtrack of our life. There are so many instances. I had teenage parents, so music from a young age was in my life. My father, we used to hate it, would listen to 50s doo-wop music, and I was like, we were like, oh, terrible. But now I have such an appreciation that I know that music, and it's great. And then things like, there's so many different genres of music. Like there was the Motown, and there was the 60s, the early singers like the Ronettes, and funny how their songs were all about, is he gonna love me? And oh my gosh, just very catered to, I want this boy to love me. Now, not so much. We don't think about that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
But we go through, and then the British invasion, and I remember it all. And then we had grunge and all of it. And I love there's songs from each era that to me are just stand out.
Okay. When you say the Ronettes, I thought, a lot of young people don't even know who
I
that
know.
was.
I know.
And doo-wop, oh my God. Yes, girl, that was in my time.
Yeah,
I
oh,
love the doo-wop.
yeah, my father loved it, and we would groan because we would drive to my grandparents out in Long Island, and of course that trip as young kids seemed like it was forever. And then my father would put on WCBS that played the oldies, and we were like, oh no, 2 hours of this. It wasn't 2 hours, but
It felt like it.
it felt like it, yeah. Uh, but total appreciation of that music, because it leads us into what rock and roll is today. And of course, we look at the to me, the high mark is always the Beatles coming in, and I think they are in a class all itself. They made everything what it is today, and also the 50s and R&B, and early R&B, that kind of molded a lot of music today. And for me, it was growing up in New York at 14, taking the bus and subway into Manhattan to go to Madison Square Garden or the Beacon Theater and seeing so many great bands. I mean, some I've seen, 5 or 6 times. And I guess growing in New York, we just think that everybody else grows up that way, where it's like, hey, we're going to go to Central Park and there's going to be a concert. And actually, my aunt had a friend who was a New York City cop, and he worked the one of the exit doors, and he would always let me in, and he'd be like, yeah, come on in. But back then, tickets were $5 to get into a concert. Yeah, so it's really funny. And then from going to concerts, I had just stepped into and of course I was underage, but I was dating somebody who was a roadie for like the number one band, because it was a big band circuit in New York. And it was not only New York, it was basically Long Island, parts of New York, Connecticut, New Jersey. And these guys were the one of the number one bands.
Well, I want to know which band.
Well, they never became
Okay.
something. And the only reason why I kind of back off naming them is because unfortunately 2 of my good friends have passed. And
sorry.
Yeah, and it's kind of sad. When I heard it, it was very devastating. And then, the phone calls to, friends you haven't talked to in probably, 35 years. And it's like, what happened? But yeah, the 2 of them were very close friends, and they even got to meet my daughters. And that was really from early on. And then to meet my daughters, it was kind of special. So I got in with them, and I was dating this guy, and then sometimes you realize that you're better off being just really good friends. And yeah, he became like a brother to me. So and there are times when there's one place, and you probably know it because it used to be where the big bands in the 40s were. It was called Glen Island Casino. And on Tuesdays, back in the day, they would have 3 bands playing. And when I would go there, there were other bands, and then you become friends with the other bands. And it was just, you knew everybody. Some people you liked, some people you didn't like. And it depended what kind of music they played. I was a progressive, straight rock and roll girl. I wasn't into the Southern rock or some of the, it wasn't punk rock yet, but some of that kind of stuff. So I want to hear the Stones. I want to hear this. And my friends played more progressive. So it was like, Jethro Tull and Led Zeppelin, and they were phenomenal. And I did.
So now wait a minute. So you're talking about in the 70s and 80s?
The mid to late 70s. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And it was the scene. It was the scene, man. And I met someone from another band, and we got into a serious relationship. And so then, and it's terrible to say it, but you're known as somebody's girlfriend, not necessarily, they know your name, but you're so-and-so's girlfriend. And that kind of signals to people, don't go near her. She belongs. I hate to say it like that, because today we would be, what? But it was like that. And we had, and I am friends with some of my girlfriends from the band girls, we all stuck together, and we were a group, and we watched out for each other, because even on the basic club level, and we're not talking about, bands today that, I go see, and I used to get backstage, and, there's the groupies. Even in the bar scene, there's those people. So it was kind of understood that we would all watch out. I never had to worry about it, because the person that I was with was a very loyal person.
Beth, when you say watch out, I mean, what did you have to watch out for?
Well, if somebody's girlfriend wasn't there that night, there was always some female that would try to go to one of the guys that, I knew their girlfriend. And
Oh,
I made it very clear to them. And so this is like, there's like such a dynamic, that I said, I don't want to see you leave with someone, because I will want to tell my friend, right? Um,
okay.
and whether it was a fiance or whatever. But if I did do that, that would upset the way the
Okay.
band worked. So you're
Oh,
kind of like stuck in the middle there. You want to be true to your friend, and yet you really can't say anything, because it it would upset the whole working of the band. So I just said,
oh,
"Can you not? I don't want to see it. If I see it, I'll be torn." And so the guys were, because I used to go all the time and go to school and have like maybe 3 hours of sleep. But that was the way it was, and it was exciting, and it was fun, and everybody back then was hoping for a record company to come see them, but you had to have original music.
was there a band then back then that you know of now that had, that became famous?
Yes, I can tell you one.
Okay.
Twisted Sister came out of that.
Well, now that's real. That's real rock. I mean, what do you call that rock? That's
It was like glam rock or something.
okay.
Actually, my boyfriend's band, it was like a Memorial Day weekend, 4th of July, and it was Twisted Sister and my boyfriend's band. So it was like the bar was packed, and it was kind of like just sit where you are. And the bartenders used to be pretty good. They would send drinks over. But yeah, it was that was a scene. But yes, they came out of there, and there's probably lesser known bands that came from there. I don't know what they're doing now, but some of them still play a club type of circuit, but it's
Mhm.
not big, big. But yeah, Twisted Sister is the one who came out of that.
Okay.
And my friends were, I mean, they were phenomenal, phenomenal musicians. My friend who played the keyboard was a maestro. He could listen to something once, he could play classical. I mean, he was just, and he was playing piano, mellotron, or I mean, he was just going back and forth, back and forth.
Okay.
And my friend who was a guitar player, he played with Jimmy Page, from Zeppelin and stuff. So these guys were phenomenal, but it was always you, and you had to have a shtick, right? It's like, and that's why in my books, um, I make their thing. They have a female lead singer, which was a thing, and part of my books is kind of the path that I should have gone down, but never did, because when you're 19, 20, 21, you think that you really have you think you're
You know
really,
everything. Yeah.
yeah, right.
Got it all
And
together.
exactly. And then when it came to, well, do I really want to sing? You have the self-doubt, and it's, am I pretty enough? Am I? So once you start building that up, you don't do it. But it's a path that you should have gone down, but never did. Uh,
Do you regret that you did not go down that path?
um, a little bit, but I've learned to not regret certain things, because if I went down that path, then I probably wouldn't have my 3 daughters.
Okay.
So I kind of think that life, even though there are roads that we go down that we're like, what? Why did we go down that road? It's, what was I thinking? But it brings us to where we are. And
Okay.
if there's, it's like that movie, The Butterfly Effect, which I only saw once, and I said I would never see it again because I found it very depressing. But one little change in the ripple of your life changes everything.
That's
And
true.
um, so I learned this, like when people said, "Oh, did you have regret?" I said, "Yeah, marrying my first husband." And then I realized my daughters took offense to it because it's their father. And I realized, um, yeah, that they're my most treasured thing. They're the best job I ever had. The best creation that I could have done was the 3 of them. And so if I didn't go down that path, I wouldn't have them. And
Okay.
they're grown women now, and so I have a great relationship with them, and I can't ever think of my world without them. So when I say regrets, now regrets I have were, the idea of the story had been coming to me for a long, long time. And I do have 3 other stories that want to jump out, and I tell them, go back on the shelf. I'm not done with this. And I always tell people it played like little black and white vignettes. None of the characters had names. It was just situation, and it was basically formatting my book. And I didn't
Are
realize.
these situations that, so the name of your books are the Perfection
Saga, yeah.
Saga. Um, what made you choose that name?
I don't know, Jen. It was, I will tell you that the story started coming to me faster and faster. It was still in black and white. And when I tell you this, this is actually no lie. Like 3 years before, I kept saying, you know, I should write this. I should write this, and didn't act on it. And one day I was cleaning my house, and the story started coming to me in color. And I was like, "Oh, okay." Now the characters started to have names, where they were from, and I went into the shower, and this is literally how it happened. I turned the shower on, and the story flooded through me, and the main character had a name, and it was a name, I don't know why I would pick that name, but that was the name, and the male character. And originally, the original name for my book was, because Perfection is the name of the band. So
Okay.
originally, I was going to name the book, which is now a series.
Mhm.
Um, Life doesn't mean perfection, meaning I thought it meant, their life is not only the band, but the perfection that they seek to have in their life. And because I'm self published, I do have a team that I work with. I have a publishing consultant, and she's the groovy lady who put together my team, my editor, my marketing person, the woman who does my book covers, which I just got. My third book's going to be out in August. And yeah, 3 books in 1 year. It'll be 3 books in 1 year. And I just got the mock-up for the cover for book 3. So the one she does my book covers, she does my website, she does the book layout. She's phenomenal. So I have this wonderful team of 4 women who want me to succeed. And so when my publishing consultant looked at my manuscript, she said, "We need to change the name. It sounds like a self-help book." And I said, "Okay." I was open to it. And she said, "This isn't 1 book. This is 2 books. You've written 2 books." And I was like, "Oh, okay. So then we've got 2 books." And when the editor read the second book, she said, "I think you need to continue the story. The story doesn't end there." So I said, "I can do that." And so book 3 and book 4 were actually 1 book. And they said, "Again, you wrote 2 books. You need to break it someplace." So I did. And so now book 3 is the first round of editing has happened. My editor has all that. So just waiting for the second round of edits to come. So I think August it'll be released. And book 4, I have just gone through it 2 or 3 times. And book 4 is written. Book 5 is written. And most of book 6 is written. And there'll be 7 and 8 because I cannot, the way I want the story to play out, will be 8 books. And because because I write so lengthy, because my books are very dialogue driven. And I will say that the female character, the lead, is much like me in the way she speaks. And I trickle some of my real life moments.
That's what I wanted to know.
Yes.
About you and being around rock and roll, within the band kind of thing, environment is are parts of your books. Is it a little bit on about you? I know it's fiction, but fiction, what do they say? Fiction based on nonfiction or real life?
Oh, yeah. Oh gosh, I always say it to myself when I'm writing the books. Sometimes life is an imitation of art, or art is an imitation of life. And yes, does that apply? 100% it does. There's obviously it is fiction, but there are parts of the character that are definitely me. And at this point in time, I will say that she's me and I'm her. And it's a very weird kind of relationship where if I hear a song that I know is in the book and that elicits a certain thing, like Stevie Wonder, "You Are the Sunshine of My Life."
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That song is relatable to her parents, and her parents are dancing, and she starts to cry because she never saw her parents that much in love, like as they were on the dance floor. So now when I hear that song, I start to get teary. And there are certain other songs that are related to her that I immediately get a visceral reaction to it because it's real to me. And I wrote it, but it is very real. And it's very weird, but at the same time, I love it. And as I'm writing her lines in the book, sometimes, and my editor said this in book 3, because I try to soften her language, because she's an Italian girl from Long Island, which is a little bit different from me being an Italian girl from Westchester. But she comes from a family that is extremely wealthy and is very well, as we say, connected. And I do know about that
Well,
because
you see what Maxine said, Walker said here. She says, keep on writing, because she could tell about the way you speak that you are in the books as well. So,
she is
yeah.
bright. Good. Thank you, Maxine. You are correct. So yeah, my father was a little bit, not a little bit, he was a wise guy, but and I can say it because my father is gone now for like 11 years, but you grow up, and I tried to bring that into the book, and sometimes it's the way that we speak, and it might be harsh to some people, but I grew up with, I had 3 brothers who were all younger than me. I was the big sister, and the language that went on in my house was probably what people would be like, what? But that was normal in my house. So I impart that into the book as being that Italian girl. And you also never talk about, there's certain words we never say in the house, and it begins with an M. And I one time said that to my father, and he said, I don't know what you're talking about. So you learn to just, things are, I knew at 5 years old. And I don't know if you've heard this, you probably have, that there are people who have old souls.
Yeah.
And I had an old soul, and at the age of 5, I knew that there was something different about my family, at least with my father. And
So, what's
so,
a wise guy?
um, part of the mob,
Against
part of the
gangster?
mob, part of the mob, part of the mob.
Whoa, okay. That's
Yeah, and
another story.
yeah, no, but I put it in the books because it does
Okay.
play a
That's what
role in the
happens.
books.
Now,
Um,
before we go any further, I
yeah,
want to ask you something.
sure.
Now, so you were, you know, so your books are about you and that life, so to speak. So, I mean, it's fiction based on real life. Now, the tell us something, and I don't know if it's in your book
Hmm.
or not, that we don't know about backstage life
Mm.
with you guys with.
Um,
They won't come after you for.
uh,
But,
well,
with those bands at that time, because when we think about, at least me, when I think about the bands back then, and I know some of them are still here now, like one of my favorite, which is the Eagles. And I looked at your playlist, and I don't understand why you don't have.
no Eagles. Yeah, they were not one of my. I've learned to have a little bit of
Okay,
appreciation
welcome
for it.
to the Hotel California. I
Yeah.
don't know why that's not.
Well, I mean, you
Anyway,
have to not love Hotel California and riding in
so
the fast lane.
so what what is something that may be in your book or may not be in your book that will surprise us about the bands back then? Because when we hear stuff and we think it's wild all the time, and drugs and alcohol and women.
It is
you know
exactly that. It
wow.
is exactly that. I used to, a friend of mine, and her brother, um, and I don't want to use names, but her brother wrote the song, I Love Rock and Roll, so put another dime in the jukebox.
Like, baby,
Yeah,
I
he
love
wrote it,
rock and roll.
and he was in a band in England, and we saw him on Don Kirshner's rock concert. And then when he came to the United States, he was married to a very famous Hollywood star's daughter. We'll just say that. And I remember going to his a birthday party, and there was a lot of celebs, and the his wife had an extremely famous sister. And I was sitting at a table, and I'm talking to this guy next to me, and he's like, "So you're gonna come to my club later?" And I looked at him and I said, What club what's your club?" And he goes, "Studio 54." And it was Steve Rebell. I was sitting next to Steve Rebell, and I was like, yeah, sure. Yeah, I'll go, So you're confronted with those things. And I was probably 19. And then that friend and I don't know how we got friends with him, but he was the promotional manager for a very big record label. So he would call us and say, "Hey, meet me and backstage pass." So there is kind of a wall, right? Unless you get introduced or whatever. But there is a lot of drugs, and it's free for you. I mean, it was free for me. Always, never had to pay for anything. It's just given to you, and you can have it, not have it, whatever. Most of the time, if you're with certain people, they're like, "Come on, take a hit of this." And it was usually cocaine. Cocaine was big back then. Everybody was doing it. And I'm not going to lie and say that I never partaked, but I did not have, and I had friends who went down that path. I didn't understand why people loved it so much. And so for me, it was a good thing. Weed, lots of alcohol, and there are lots of women. There are women who get backstage who probably shouldn't be there. And some of the guys have girlfriends or wives, and these people don't care. They don't care. I mean, slip their phone number into somebody's. So, as a woman, if that's your man in that band, you better watch. You better watch, because and then the parties after. I mean, I think now. Well, now everybody has tour buses, right? And there's lots of parties in tour buses. It depends on the band. It depends on each person in the band, because usually every guy in the band has their own tour bus. So if they're married and have kids, the kids are in there. So that's
Okay.
yeah. But if they're not, then it's a party. It's
Oh, wow.
it's a
Okay.
party. And so yeah, it's fun and exciting, but at the same time, whether it's in a bar or whether you're playing, Madison Square Garden, it is a grind. It is like, okay, where do we go? Where is our next gig? In the bars, it's smelly beer, cheap perfume, maybe vomit on the ground kind of stuff at the end of the night. If you're playing the garden, not so much, but maybe, a little bit of craziness that's happened. So, as you elevate, the
Okay.
craziness can. But some bands, now there's a lot of bands that especially are coming from the late 1990s, 2000s, and they're resurrecting themselves. And
Yeah.
there's some of the grunge bands, which I love grunge. Unfortunately, some of our best people from that era have killed
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's very sad.
Yeah.
But like Pearl Jam is touring now, and
Mhm.
Metallica is touring, and so, and then you have some of the bands that are just resurrecting themselves, like
Yeah.
maybe they took a 15-year break, and touring is where the bands make money.
So let me ask you, a question came in here.
Sure.
Uh, Who is your favorite singer, or who is your favorite band? What is your favorite band?
Okay. And yes, my favorite band is Nickelback.
Nickelback.
Hmm.
Is that on your playlist?
A lot.
Okay, you know what? Okay, so I went to your playlist,
Hmm.
and some of the songs I recognized, but I didn't recognize that particular band.
It's in there a lot. I actually was I did a podcast and it was very music related. And the guy said to me, you have an eclectic mix. And he said, but I do notice you have a lot of Nickelback. And I said, yeah, because they're my favorite band. So I'm going to
Okay. Yeah,
put
because
them
I
in.
kept clicking on the songs. I'm like, I never heard that one. Well, I think I heard that one, but I never heard that one.
Some of some of the songs you would know that are pretty famous
Mm-hmm.
that they've done, and then because I go deep dive, some of my favorite songs people might not know unless you're really into the band. I mean, that would be my I think I would love it. Um, um, the lead singer is Chad Kruger. Everybody pronounces it Kroger, but it's Kruger. Because I have some good songs. Actually, I'm writing a what I think is a phenomenal song, and I would love for him to look at my songs and say,
Okay.
"Okay, well, I can't write music. I can write lyrics.
But
I
you like
know
it.
the
Okay.
I know the way I want the song to sound because the two main characters." And it is a love story. I mean, it's a rock and roll love story, and the two characters are deeply in love, and you know they'll write each other love songs. And her cousin is part of the band, and he's like, "Oh, did you guys write another? Is it about you two again?" So they have to try to pull back some of their personal stuff that happens. um, I've actually wrote a couple of dirty songs because dirty is in now. We went from the censors like really cracking down. And I remember listening to Who Are You from The Who. And
Who are you?
right.
Who,
And
who, who,
so,
who?
so at one point, Roger Daltrey sings the F word. And I remember listening to it and saying, whoa, they let that in? And I think we started the slippery slope from that point. I don't know. But then of course we put the warnings, and my daughters grew up with and I wasn't that parent. I was like, they're hearing this stuff anyway. So um I would buy the with the parental advisories. Uh and we started going down that slope. So now everything's okay.
Okay. Well, Sandy Barney Ennis says groupies will commit to do anything and everything to be with who they follow. Drugs, sex, no limit, no morals.
Sandy is correct. She's
Oh,
very correct.
okay. So do
Um,
your daughters, how do they like rock and roll music? Did they follow in your path?
well, I raised them as little girls to I introduced them to the Beatles, the Stones, the Police, Genesis. I mean, you name it, I was putting the CDs in there. And of course, in between some of that was, the Little Mermaid soundtrack and
Okay.
stuff like that. But we'd be in the supermarket and they would have, the piped in music. And I would look at them and say, "Who's this?" And they would say, "It's Sting without the police." And I'm like, "Yes, yes, you
Okay.
got it." So they they did grow up with all that music, and it's funny how they kind of branched out. Like my oldest daughter is into hip hop, but she does go back to her grunge roots, so I'm happy about that. Um, but she does listen to, I think it's because her husband likes hip hop, and
Okay.
we're talking like pretty heavy hip hop over there.
Okay.
My middle daughter is kind of varied. I remember when she was listening to Adele, and which I love Adele, but
Okay.
she was listening to it, and I hope it's okay to say this, but I said to her, "What are you listening to? Like, do you have your period or something? Is that why you're listening to this music?" And she's like, "Oh my God." And so now she reminds me, that I said that to her. And my youngest daughter is eclectic. I remember we drove to Birmingham, which is like a 2-hour drive. And I said, "We'll put on my playlist." She goes, "No, we're putting on mine." And I said, "Okay." And I was shocked that she had groups like the Kinks and Van Morrison. And I was like, "Kara, I'm very proud of you." But she does listen to a lot of electronica too. So um, their roots are there because and also one of the last things I did before I went to New York, and I took my daughter and I got tickets to see Peter Gabriel with Sting, and it was a great concert. And she was the one who said to me, "Mom, we got to get tickets to this. I mean, how can we not see this?" And it was at Jones Beach, which is a great venue to see a concert at. The first concert I took my daughters to was, and I don't know if you know this band, but Korn, and they were, one of the headbanger kind of stuff from it's I would say that they were post grunge. They weren't grunge, but their songs are very headbanging. And I took all three of them, and people were shocked that they said, "You took your daughters to Corn?" I said, "Yeah, my oldest daughter really wanted to see them, so I just bought tickets." And the second concert I took them to was the Red Hot Chili Peppers and Stone Temple Pilots. I mean, so yeah, I've always,
Kind of like, yeah. So
yeah,
I don't want, I want to get these questions in.
sure,
So I've got two questions. The
yeah.
first one, it says that we talked about men having groupies. Did the women have men waiting on them too?
Well, in my story, um, Gina is, and that's the name of the character, Gina is very sexual on stage. And not only is she singing and playing against with her husband, so it's very easy for her to be very sexual. So yes, men desire her. She only has eyes for her husband. She's
Good.
that deeply in love with him. But there is an antagonist that
Okay.
comes in that is trying to pull her
Get to her.
away.
Okay. Let me,
But
because we only got a couple of minutes, so I want to get these questions in because
get
they're
him
coming
in.
fast and heavy. Okay, the next question is there an entertainer? Well, this is a good one. Who sings songs that represent your life?
Mm, 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 mm. Represents my life. Um, Gosh, I'm drawing a total blank.
Okay.
I would say that it depends on my mood. I mean, like for some reason, Bruno Mars is coming to my head.
Oh,
And uh, then, you do have people like, I'm thinking Taylor Swift. She's, haters gonna hate. Um, and of course, I have to revert to Nickelback. And I'm trying to think of some female. There is a singer named Amy Lee, who's in a band called Evanescence. So some of her songs I have taken very personally, kind of describing my life. And the song, if the person wants to know, is Falling Under, because I did have a rough time at one time. And so that song was very pivotal to me.
Okay, all righty. So we only got we got 3 minutes. The time goes by
I
so
know.
fast, but I was really so what I want to do before we go, let me do this right quick before we go. So people can, if they want to know more about you, I'm putting your Instagram on. And for just people who are Audible only, is Instagram.com/B as in boy, as in Beth.
Yes.
Pellinodudzic. How do you pronounce your last name?
Dudzic.
Dudzic.
You
So,
did a good job.
okay. Oh, thank you. So it's Instagram.com, B as in Beth, P as in Paul, Ellinodudzic, and treads.com. That's treads, TREADS. It's the same. B as in Beth, and her name is Pellino, Dudzic, Duzic. I wanted to make sure I got that in
Yes.
because I want them to make sure that they get a chance to go on, find your Perfection Saga. My Midwestern saga.
Yes.
Saga, because it's very interesting. And your playlist, was that on Spotify?
It's on Spotify. Yes.
Yeah. Look for her name.
It's Perfection Saga.
It's Perfection Saga on playlist. So if you love rock and roll, like I do, a lot of people didn't know I love rock and roll.
Good
Put a little nickel in the jukebox, baby. And I love rock and roll. And what's the other one? Don't give me that rock and roll music. But my husband,
the Beatles.
Right. My husband teases me because he gets in the car and I have rock and roll on. And my son and I went on a trip and we were in the car and we had a rock and roll playlist. We were singing at the top of our lungs. People were looking at us like, what are they doing? And Maxine says, me too.
Oh, Maxine, I am a workout fanatic. And I work out like 90 minutes. And that's why I'm saying I'm getting my singing voice ready because blues as well, yes. I play my playlist and I sing to it. And here's the thing. Your voice is an instrument. And I think that's the thing people have to understand. Your voice is an instrument and you have to take care of it. And then there are some days that I'm like, I sound phenomenal. I need to be doing this. And then there are some days where it's like, oh, bad. It's bad. It's flat. It's and you really need to take care of it. And I've kind of seen it in certain concerts when there are bands that sound phenomenal live, and then there are sometimes when the lead singer just doesn't have it that night, and for whatever reason.
I got you. So leave us with a thought.
Perfection Saga is about how two different groups of people form one band, and it becomes their journey. And as the book progresses, the journey starts to include every member of the band and families, and it's I think a pretty accurate depiction of what goes on. And this couple, they are known to be, you know, she's sexy, he's hot, everybody wants them, but they only love each other. And it's how their love endures. And the book is naughty too. I'm not gonna. The book is naughty. There's naughty parts in it, and that's just part of what a loving couple does.
Okay,
So,
well, Beth, I don't want you to tell too much about the
nope,
book,
nope,
because
nope.
I want them to definitely find it, look for you, and I want to really thank you. You got to come on again so we can get a little bit
I was going to
deeper.
say I will come on again because I think we can. We love music and we talk about
Yes,
it.
yes.
We're definitely doing it again. Whenever you want me, I will be there.
And maybe we'll even find each other at the same rock concert. You never know.
Oh, we could meet at one.
We sure can.
We could pick one and go.
All righty. Thank you so much, Beth. It has been
Thank
a
you.
pleasure. It has been a pleasure. And yeah, I'm going to go on. I'm going to make a rock playlist and I'm going to share it with you. So you'll know who my favorites are.
I can't wait.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It has been a pleasure.
It was a joy being on here. Thank you.
All righty. Have a good rest of your evening.
Yes, I'm on Central Time too.
Right. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, it's been great. It's been great. It's been great. It's nice to find someone. Maxine, I didn't know that you liked rock and roll. We got to get together on that. She works out for 90 minutes and so do we. Maybe we need to play some rock and roll music. So I want to thank everyone for coming in and for contributing. And I love my viewers. And I just want to thank you all for supporting me in this journey that I am on. Now, next week will be an encore. If you have a favorite show or episode that you would like me to play, I will put it on because I will not be live because it is my anniversary week. We will have been married 15 years and we're going to celebrate our 15 years of being married. We've been together over 20. How many years, Keith?
23.
23. We've been together 23 years. But anyway, but if you can always find me on Facebook, find my name. And if there is an episode that you would like to see again, please, 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 please let me know. So this has been Relationship Matters TV. Remember, there are all kinds of relationships. There are all kinds of relationship matters. Life is about relationships. So see you in 2 weeks. All righty. Bye-bye.